You're listening to the Visibly Fit podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Wendie Pett, and every week I'll give you holistic, practical solutions for everyday issues related to nutrition, healing, functional fitness, and behavior modifications. As a naturopath, fitness expert, and wellness coach for over 20 years, my goal is to empower you to reach for greater health and to rise up to your next level of living in mind, body, and spirit. You were created with greatness in mind. It's time to own it. Are you with me? Then let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this episode of Visibly Fit. I'm your host, Wendie Pett. Here's the question for you today. Are you stimulated or are you overstimulated? And you might be saying, well, that's just a really odd question and it's so, I don't know, generic. Yeah, Wendie, am I stimulated? Of course. Am I overstimulated? Yes. But in what ways? Well, that's for you to decide. But we're going to talk about stimulation versus overstimulation today and how to become more into a state of homeostasis, into a balanced state. I'm going to give you, first of all, the definition of stimulation. And it's the encouragement of something to make it develop or become more active. So we need to stimulate ourselves in order to be active, to be thriving in life, not just surviving, but thriving. Another definition is arousing, right? Stimulation causes us to be aroused. Stimulation also, the other definition is raising levels of physiological or nervous activity in the body or any biological system. So you're raising your levels of activity in the body when you are stimulated versus not being stimulated. So there's a difference between no stimulation, stimulation, and overstimulation. Let's give overstimulated a little look here. It says being overstimulated can cause extreme emotional or physical uncomfort. So we know this to be true in your own area as you're thinking about how am I overstimulated or am I stimulated or where am I stuck, where am I stagnant? I'm sharing this in a general term at the moment, but we're going to get down to the nitty gritty here in a minute. But first of all, I want to give you just a simple analogy or paint the picture a little bit. I think about a pond of water, or I'll have you think about a pond of water. And it's a very stuck, stagnant, no water is moving in that pond of water. What is happening in that pond of water? Bacteria is breeding, muck is coming up to the surface, mosquitoes are being bred in that stuck and stagnant water. There's just not a lot of activity. That's water you would never want to go and drink, right? Because there's going to be a lot of bacteria in that kind of water being bred. Now, if you are around overstimulated water, it can not be good either, because that water is over churning. All the stuff from the bottom of the pool of water is coming up to the surface. You can't see, it's not clear. There's a lot of waves and chaos. And anyway, I'm trying to paint a picture. This is not maybe a good analogy, but it is in my head. So I'm hoping you're staying with me. But overstimulation, even of a pool of water, is not good. We want to have that water be in a healthy, good state of being, so that it's in a healthy state to consume, drink, be in physically, as if you're swimming or being in that water. So another analogy, let's go here. All right, maybe this will be better. What about dry brushing? Dry brushing is something that stimulates your body. It stimulates the largest organ, your skin. And if you're not dry brushing, I highly recommend it. I'm holding it up right now. If you are watching on YouTube, this is ours. It's just a natural bristle brush. It's not, firm bristles. They're just kind of, soft bristles, but still sturdy. And we do the dry brushing to help stimulate activity, meaning activity in our lymphatic system, activity in our circulatory system, We use it to help to reduce the signs of cellulite because it helps to break up where deposits of fluids and fat are maybe stuck and stagnant. Dry brushing helps to, open up pores so you can sweat in a more effective and efficient manner. Dry brushing is good. I remember my grandparents used to always have a dry brush in their bathroom, and I used to think, well, that's weird. Why do they have this in their on their bathtub? And I didn't quite understand why they had this brush. And anyway, she said, oh, we just use this before we go into the tub. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. And so over the years, I've been dry brushing and actually got a new set recently. And this is a really effective way to really stimulate the largest organ in your body. But if you overstimulated by using this dry brush, what would happen? You would become red, chafed, maybe even develop some open wounds or sores. It wouldn't be good. You don't want to overstimulate. You want the homeostasis, the balance to occur with just gentle, big circular motions as you are dry brushing your entire body. Now, again, I use this as an analogy, but it's also something I really want to encourage you to look into is dry brushing, because again, it helps to, help with your lymphatic system, with the drainage, and help to remove toxins. And it's just another tool in your toolbox. But I use that as an analogy because I think some people don't realize that there is a balance in all things. There really is. And, I talked with some of my patients and they're like, I'm either all or nothing. And I get that. All or nothing is something. We don't want to be the nothing. And the all in is really good. But if it's overstimulation and it's causing more damage, kind of like if you're over exercising and you're causing more inflammation in your body, it's really not doing your body so great. It's not doing your body justice. So there is a balance there. I always talk about how moderation kills momentum. And usually I'm talking about in the space of nutrition, right? Because a lot of people say, oh, I can eat this in moderation, but really, can you? And why would you if it's causing inflammation at the cellular level? So that's what I'm talking about there. But when it comes to middle ground, moderation with stimulation versus overstimulation, that's another story. We really do want to figure out, how do we have a lifestyle that is allowing our body to, really be modified based on our environment and our choices, right? A lot is our choices. And how do we continually reevaluate? And it may be on a daily basis, right? If your schedule is anything like me, it may be on a daily basis. But if you have some disciplines that are in place, like the dry brushing, or something that is going to stimulate your body in a way that's going to better you for that day, like stimulation of reading God's word. For me, my husband and I, that's what we do. We have our devotions every morning. That is stimulating our soul. It's stimulating our spirit, and it's getting us into a right frame of mind for our day. Deep breathing is a great way to stimulate your body. If you're over breathing, you could hyperventilate, right? So you don't want to overstimulate with breathing, but there are ways to breathe that will actually stimulate the cilia that are connected, those little hairs that are connected to the hypothalamus. And that hypothalamus is going to talk to, if you will, and trigger and connect the nervous system to the endocrine system, right? And then that endocrine system is where your body regulates hormones. And so when you're breathing, our body, it all works as one, right? So when you're breathing deeply and effectively, it starts to trigger one system to the next to the next. And a lot of people just aren't breathing well. And so they're in that stuck and stagnant kind of place where things can breed, if you will, bacteria, dis-ease in the body. So if you're not breathing to trigger your systems so that they are working in an effective manner, then I want to encourage you to start deep breathing. It will be a game changer in your life. Now, there are all kinds of ways to do deep breathing. One of my Visibly Fit 7x11 exercises is an incredible deep breathing exercise. It's obviously awesome for your abdominals and your low back, but it's also incredible for your mind, and it's incredible for releasing toxins and getting those systems to talk, right? So deep breathing, you can do box breathing. Box breathing is where you would inhale through your nose. Think about those hairs in your nose, right? You're filtering out the toxins as you're even inhaling, but you breathe in maybe for a count of 4 or 5, and then you hold for a count of 4 or 5, and then exhale out your mouth, your nose for a count of 4 or 5, and then hold that for a count of 4 or 5. That's kind of box breathing, or I don't know what else they call it, box breathing, square breathing, whatever you want to call it. Diaphragm kind of breathing is where you're really doing that belly breathing, like a baby would, right? So you're inhaling big, and your stomach rises and your chest rises, and then when you exhale, it all comes down naturally and comes back towards the spine. And with my Visibly Fit deep breathing exercise, it's more of inhale through the nose and exhale out your mouth, and it's actually lifting up your chest and pulling your abs toward your spine, and then dropping your chest and abs down and back. So it's a little bit different, but it's all still breathing, right? And there's so many different effective ways. You guys, I'm sure, have heard of Wim Hof breathing, right? Awesome. If you're doing Wim Hof breathing, keep doing it. Effective for good brain health, effective for your body at the cellular level. And it's like dry brushing for your insides. It's scrubbing out the toxins from your inside. So I really encourage that. I really do. I was thinking about someone who has been maybe overstimulated, to kind of paint the picture. You may or may not know of someone that has autism, but I do, and I know several. But when they stim, you've heard maybe of them stimming, right? So that's usually when they're overstimulated and they have to release that energy, and they don't know how, and they're doing what would seem weird for someone who doesn't understand autism, or that they're releasing that overstimulation. It may seem weird in how they're doing it, whether they're messing with something and pulling at something, or making noises, or some have banged their head or hands into a wall, or they're just trying to release that overstimulation. Same with someone that may be dealing with ADHD or ADD. They just need to really just be away from the stimulation and be alone and get outdoors, outside. There's something so beautiful and relaxing, and it allows your body to go into that homeostasis, balanced state, when we are out in nature and not around phones and social media and television and people, because that can just keep the overwhelm and the stimulus going. So know when to break away. If that is you, if you are a highly sensitive person, know when to just step outside. Know when to take a deep breath. Know when to take several deep breaths. In fact, I would encourage you to start doing the breathing routine every hour, and start to notice, journal and notice the difference in how you're thinking, how you're sleeping, how you're processing, and how you are able to de-stress and show up in a situation in a different way. So so knowing those healthy boundaries is going to be very important, because I sometimes see my patients put themselves in situations where they are either people pleasing, or they are just not knowing how to be assertive and be bold with their needs. And so it's important. This is your life. This is the life that God has given you. And he has not given us a life to be overstimulated or not stimulated. He's given us a life to enjoy and to have the stimulation that he has offered for us. And I want you to think about stimulation for just a moment, and in the sense of our senses, right? The stimulation of our eyes and our eyesight, and how God really does know what he's doing, right? He created incredible foods for us to eat that stimulates us via eyesight. Like we see the bright colors and we're like, ooh, that looks so good. Yes, that's for a reason. So we are stimulated by certain colors. We're stimulated by certain smells. I always think about when the lilacs bloom and I'm out for a walk and I just walk past a lilac bush and I just stop, or a honeysuckle a bush, and I just stop and I just take it in, just inhale big, and I'm like, oh, this smells so good, thank you, Lord. Like those are great things to pause and be grateful for, and to really be conscious about, because that is good, healthy stimulus. Or think about, what are you hearing? What are you listening to? Are you listening to maybe whole tones? I've talked about whole tones before. If you're working, that is an incredible way to stay in a just a soothed state while you're working, or while you're doing chores or whatever, or just going outside, right, and listening to the birds. That's pretty awesome. So being aware of what you're listening to, and are you over listening to something? So I know people that, they go to bed with the television on, the radio on, there's always noise. And I couldn't do it. That's not for me. But I'll tell you, it's really not for you either if you're doing that. And it may be just a habit. It may be just one of those calming comforts that may seem calming in the moment, but actually it's not allowing your parasympathetic nervous system to become balanced. So I really would like to encourage you to turn off that television, turn off those sounds. If it's maybe just a fan or something like that in the background that you need, just because you don't want complete silence, that's okay. But I'm just talking about the nonstop talking and the blue light and all the activity that comes with screens, right? We need to turn those off. What about with the stimulus of stimulating our tongue, right? There's so many taste buds on our tongue for a reason. So they would be stimulated and really enjoy flavors and know what's hot, what's not, what's spicy, what's tangy, what's sweet, so that we would really have that awareness of what our body enjoys and what it also needs. When we pay attention to what we're putting in our mouth and not cover it up with sugar and salt and oils and cover up the real food, oh my goodness, those taste buds will just come alive again. So just start eating the food itself and not cover it up, okay? And watch that stimulation become more balanced. And then what about feel? What about when you feel? Touch is a great way to stimulate and have gratitude in what's around you. So I know that I mentioned the lilacs whenever I go for a walk, and I can smell those. I know that I've bent down several times to feel, I think it's called lamb's ear or something. It's I should know this. Anyway, it's a real soft plant, and I love it. It just is so soft to the touch, and I usually touch that if I see it and I walk by. Or when you touch your spouse's hand, right? Like how beautiful that is, and just the energy that flows when you have a loving touch with somebody. So yeah, I really just wanted to draw your attention today to the word stimulation and to the word overstimulation. And how do we balance that out? How do you balance that out? We here at Visibly Fit are all about helping you achieve a balanced lifestyle. So if that is something that you're looking to do, it's not just about nutrition. It's not just about exercise. Those are very important, and we touch on those big time. But we want to help you as an individual have a very well-rounded, healthy stimulation in your life, inside and out, and we can help you accomplish that. So go to wendiepett.com to learn more, or if you're ready to dive in and get on a program that's incredible. Like you will be, you will come to your senses, so to speak, and literally quickly in 7 weeks. And it's so much fun. We have an incredible group of ladies that are dedicated and committed to one another and to staying on course. And so if you're looking for a program that is high level accountability and a program that works, then go to getvisiblyfit.com and we can help you along that journey. So bless you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Visibly Fit. And yeah, just kind of unpack this a little bit today and maybe do a spreadsheet. Yeah. Or like a pros and a cons, or a list of what kind of stuff is, how does your day look every day? What are you stimulated by on a daily basis? And what are you overly stimulated by on a daily basis? Kind of just evaluate. You might not even be aware until you write it down. So that would be my suggestion for you as an exercise. Just unpack that, write it on a piece of paper, and then you can kind of have a bird's eye view, so to speak, of what's going on, how you're operating. Because sometimes we're just in autopilot. You don't even realize how much overstimulation you might be getting, or no stimulation at all. And that's not good either. We want to have healthy stimulation inside and out. So, all right, blessings, my friends. And remember, Philippians 4:13. It is my life verse, but I always like to share it with you when I can. And that's, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So that's you. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So you may be in a place where you're like, yeah, you have no idea, Wendie. Oh my goodness. You have no idea my life. You're right. I may not, but God does. And he has given you the strength and the power to overcome. So just keep that in your mind and in your heart today, and take that next step to become one step better. All right. God bless. And we'll catch you next time on Visibly Fit. Well, that's a wrap for today's show. So thank you so much for tuning in. I love spending this time with you. To learn more and get more free resources, just head on over to wendiepett.com. And thank you in advance for sharing this episode and this podcast, following and subscribing, not only to this podcast, but finding me on social media, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are, I'm probably there too. Until next week and our next podcast time together, make it a visibly fit day.